Hello, Gene Schwimmer here. Welcome to today's vlog. One of the first things that you can say about this new Biden administration is I think there's a record. It could be a record in how quickly buyer's remorse, or I should say, I guess, voters' remorse is setting in. People thought they were voting for one thing and they seem to be waking up to the fact that they are getting something else. What they are getting is actually what we conservatives predicted. Full disclosure, I'm a conservative. You should always keep that in mind whenever I say something, evaluate it in the light of my being a conservative. So today we're going to talk about, well, I'm going to give you 3 examples of, well, it's not just what you got from the Biden administration or what you're getting, good and hard, as H.L. Mencken said, a famous journalist of the past, that the people have voted, they made their choice, now they have to get what they voted for. Give it to them good and hard. So you're getting it good and hard, you liberals, and unfortunately the rest of us are getting it too. But the problem with liberalism is it's supposed to do one thing and it ends up doing something else. It's clear, well, I was going to say be careful what you wish for, be careful what you vote for. And that's especially true when you vote for liberals. And here we go, some examples. I'm going to start, well, starting off with this, drive the fight for 15 being $15 an hour minimum wage. I could do a whole vlog on, and maybe I will, on the $15 minimum wage. The main bad part being that it costs jobs. And I can tell you that from personal experience because my day job, I'm a commercial real estate broker. I deal in the leasing. I work only for customers. I don't represent landlords. I represent customers, tenants looking for spaces for their businesses. So and it's all food businesses. All my customers are food customers. So I am obviously familiar with their trials and tribulations, with just the aspects of their business. So I can tell you from the experiences related to me by my customers that in New York City, which is where I live in Tennessee, but I used to live in New York, and that's where I still practice real estate thanks to the internet and the cell phone. So I practice in New York. New York raised the minimum wage to $15, and I can tell you that my customers, they're laying off. They're either not hiring or they're laying off, or what they're mostly doing is just cutting back the hours of their workers and making each remaining worker do more work harder, because they cannot stay in business. And that's another thing. There are restaurants, a lot of them going out of business in New York because of the coronavirus restrictions by their crazy mayor and their crazy governor. And they don't get along, by the way. They don't like each other, which is odd because they're both liberals and they should be, they have the same point of view, but they don't like each other. But because I don't live in New York anymore, that's not my problem. What I was about to say, I'm going to say it now, is that even before coronavirus, restaurants were closing because of the $15 minimum wage. There was a restaurant that I liked a lot. It was a well-known, well-liked restaurant, a Chinese restaurant. I forgot the exact name of it, but on 2nd Avenue and 66th Street, they went out of business. And there was an article, and they specifically said it was because of the $15 an hour minimum wage. So without further ado on that account, here's this headline. Kroger to launch pilot for entirely self-checkout store. Self-checkout, well, I'm sure you have. I know here, obviously I haven't been to every supermarket chain in the world, and really where I am in Tennessee, Kroger is the only one, so I can't speak of the other. Well, there's Whole Foods and there is Trader Joe's. Those are national chains that I don't really put them in the category of supermarkets. They have all human checkout people, at least the last time I was there. But Kroger, they have the live human being checkout people, or they have the self-service area, which is the one I always use. I remember when they first came out with the ATMs, the automatic teller machines in the banks, and I said, I'm never going to use that. I always want to deal with a human teller. But now I almost never, unless I have to, use a human teller. I use the machine. And of course, we know there are kiosks in McDonald's. Well, Kroger has a checkout section. They have a couple of them in my area. It looks like they're going to do a store now where it's going to be all self-checkout. In other words, no more human cashiers. And this is what people don't realize, or these proponents of a $15 an hour minimum wage. Number one, it doesn't solve the problem. That will be another vlog. I've talked about this in the past, that is not the solution if you're trying to raise living standards. But that's for another day. For today, all I'm saying is that once you raise the cost of labor to where it's not a matter, they call for this living wage to pay people what they think they should get. But society doesn't work that way, or business does not work that way. People have to earn more than they're being paid because their salaries, what they're doing has to pay for more stock, and of course the profits on the products, but they have rent to pay, and they have, for your salary, it's not just a salary, they have to pay Social Security, all these other expenses. You can't just decide people will have to get paid a certain amount of money and just pay them. It doesn't work that way. So if it comes to a point where the cost of using a machine is cheaper than paying a human being, and obviously machines don't unionize. They're always on time. They work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, unless they need repair. But the solution to that is to have a lot of machines, which, as you can see from the photo, Kroger apparently is going to have. So that's all you're doing. You're raising the salaries of a few people, and you're putting a lot of people out of work. Worse than that, you're taking away the first rung on that ladder for a young person just starting out who has to just learn to show up on time. Somebody's going to work at a Starbucks, or I started working for my father actually when I was 11 years old, and he had a fruit market. I got $2 an hour, and I was actually overpaid for I'm not joking about that, for what I knew and what I was able to do when I was plus I was 11. But that's the whole point, is the kids have to get a job, and if you start them at $15 an hour, you're not going to hire a lot of kids, because who in their right mind is going to pay somebody that amount, or pay a kid that amount of money? You look for an adult. So that's another disadvantage. But there is something else here. Let me mention this. The unions invariably support the Democrats. Now, the police unions, they got smart. They endorsed Donald Trump in the last election, the 2020 election, because they could see that he stood for law and order, that he supported the police, and the Democrats were the defund the police people. All these riots ever since George Floyd got killed or died. And this is another problem, prejudging the results of trials, and that brings me right into my next subject, or my next example. But first, here's this headline: AFL-CIO head killing Keystone XL pipeline, a mistake, and, quote, will cost jobs, unquote. Well, yeah, again, we conservatives told you that. You were warned that the Keystone pipeline would be canceled regardless of anything that Joe Biden said. Doesn't matter what Democrats say, because they always move to the center to get elected. That's why I predict a real problem for them in 2024. Number one, because this will be the third time actually, after Clinton and Obama and now Biden, where they campaigned as centrists, and as soon as they got elected, they moved to the left. There's my left, or stage left, where you are. But this is my left, and that's how they moved. They moved to the left. Clinton, to his credit, got the message when he lost control of the Senate and the House. The House was, for the first time in over 40 years, the Democrats lost the House and Republicans took over, and now it looks like it switches sides pretty regularly. I'm hoping that the Republicans will retake the House in 2022 and keep it for a long time. I don't know how many times they're going to be able to fool the American people with this pretending to be a centrist and then governing from the left as soon as they're in office. That was a specific reason why Joe Biden was nominated, because all the other ones, the candidates, were so obviously too far to the left that they could not be elected, so they chose Biden. But in 2024, Biden's probably going to be too old to run. His dementia will be so apparent by then that he can't run. His vice president, Kamala Harris, didn't even, I believe, crack 1% in the Democratic primaries, never mind the national vote. And the other candidates, I don't know who they have to run in 2024. I don't know who they're going to find to pretend to be a centrist in 2024, because all the centrists are being kicked out of the party. Joe Manchin, he's betraying everybody. He said he wanted bipartisanship. He just voted with the Democrats to create a split on this $1.9 trillion coronavirus stimulus package that Kamala Harris came in to break the tie. He said he wasn't going to do that. Well, he did that. So, and he would be, I think, 73. He would be 77, 78 years old if he were to run in 2024. So he's out. I don't see Cuomo. I just don't see a candidate on that side. But I'm starting to digress, so let me get back on track here. The point is that the unions, you should have known that. You should have known that. The Democratic Party is no longer the party of the average working guy, except to the extent that they believe socialism helps the average working guy. But then you're talking about these large systems and centralized government. You're talking about socialism and communism. It is not good for the worker. Ask any former worker under communism in the Soviet Union. Well, you got what you voted for. I hope you'll learn your lesson in 2024. So that's two examples. Now here's the third one. We were talking about crime. George Floyd. And by the way, the governor of Minnesota has called for at least to stand by, the National Guard to stand by in case there are riots, and we're not even talking about a verdict. We're talking about the trial just beginning for one of the officers who, they're jumping to the conclusion that it's murder. Now, I could go, maybe this is going to be something that YouTube is going to start taking websites down for if you don't say that it's murder. But there are a couple reasons to believe that it was not murder, because he was high on drugs, he had a heart condition, so on and so forth. I mentioned a video before that maybe I'll show it one of these days. It's a really disgusting video of a 20-year-old, it was shortly after the George Floyd died, of a 20-year-old man with his knee on the neck of a 2-year-old child. Scared. Well, you can imagine how frightened the child was, but the point is the child did not die. A 2-year-old child survived having the knee of an adult on his neck. So that's why I don't want to get sidetracked again. You can see the point I'm making is that I'm going to show you a video. You can watch this video and you can see what the crime situation is like in Minneapolis. Now, this happened in Minneapolis, the George Floyd incident, and you can see what's happened with the crime rate in Minneapolis when you say defund the police and you disrespect the police so much and you just basically call them all, ACAB. You see those letters, ACAB, that Antifa paints on the sides of walls, and probably Black Lives Matter too. I'm not 100% sure on that. ACAB stands for All Cops Are Bastards. So you keep putting that out, and you say you want to defund the police, and you want to just have community police. Well, you're not talking about community policing. You're talking about replacing the police with social workers. Community policing is good, as I understand it. To me, the definition of community policing is the policeman walking a beat and getting to know the store owners and the local population, so that when there is a crime or something, people feel comfortable to go to the police, or they see the police present around all the time, so they feel safe and not oppressed, which is the point. But the police are being painted as oppressors, so you're having police leave the force, number one, and number two, even when they're on the job, the police that are still there, they're very worried about enforcing the law, because they'll be accused of or they're afraid of being accused of police brutality, or they pursue a suspect, and the suspect turns around with a gun and opens fire on them, and the police shoots the suspect. Then sometimes it's the policeman who ends up on trial. And if he doesn't end up on trial, this is the main point, he could be starting a riot. The policeman has to worry that if I arrest the suspect, or if he shoots at me and I have to defend myself, that there's going to be a riot and a lot of people are going to be killed and businesses will be destroyed. So, which is what is happening in, well, this is actually St. Paul, this particular video, but it's still Minnesota, St. Paul, and it's the same idea. So I've talked enough about it. Watch the video.
The owner of a popular St. Paul brunch spot burglarized overnight says that criminals are getting too brazen, and he has a surveillance video to prove it.
It was a big safe. I mean, this is a 400-pound giant safe.
The Gnome is one of several businesses along Selby Avenue that's been hit since the start of the year. The owner told Marielle Mose that crime is scaring customers away and the city needs to do more.
The Gnome was burglarized for the second time in about a week.
Surveillance video shows two thieves dragging a safe from a third-floor office to a car parked in the back lot early Sunday morning. Owner Brian Ingram says the stolen cash inside the safe was meant for staff tips.
It's not the money that they're stealing, it's the damage they do to the building when you bust holes in walls and you rip doors off.
That security camera on the upper brick wall is one of 27 cameras on the inside and outside of the restaurant. Brian also keeps these string lights well lit all throughout the night. Security cameras and lights, something he hoped would have deterred criminals.
It's just so brazen that they're just not afraid.
The Gnome says they're not the only ones recently targeted.
It's just scary how quick they get in and out of all of these restaurants. All of us are saying the same thing.
St. Paul Police says this year 30 businesses have been robbed already, compared to 23 at this time last year.
If we don't all come together, politicians, business owners, neighborhoods, we're dead in the water, and I think that's what's hurting us right now.
Ingram says these crimes have a ripple effect. Customers are canceling reservations because they're afraid. And while these break-ins typically happen after hours, Ingram is making changes for everyone's safety.
We're taking even more precautions now, hiring security companies to be in the parking lot to patrol around us.
In St. Paul, Marielle Mose, WCCO 4 News.
In a statement to WCCO, St. Paul Mayor Melvin Carter said he is working closely with community members and the police department to adjust public safety strategies.
There you have it, 3 examples of the real world results of liberalism. In fact, I get criticized, or I have been, for saying that my favorite book, one of my favorite books, is Atlas Shrugged. Well, I understand that. I know all the problems with Ayn Rand. I know all the problems with her, and I know all the flaws in the book. In fact, I know one major flaw, which is that John Galt is actually wrong. The whole book revolves around an incident with John Galt. I'm not going to spoil the book for you. You should go out and read it. He does something, and he's a victim of an injustice, and that his reaction to what happens to him starts the ball rolling that leads to all the events of Atlas Shrugged. But actually, that one event, he was wrong. And maybe I'll do a video on that because it's kind of ironic and interesting. But none of that is what I like about Atlas Shrugged. What I what is important to me about Atlas Shrugged is you have to understand it's a novel about a dystopia. It's not a utopia. It's not a depiction of a society that any of us should want, including Ayn Rand. This is not something that even she wanted. None of us should want the kind of society depicted in Atlas Shrugged. But, and this is what is so important to me about Atlas Shrugged, because if you look at the book, if you stand back and look at the book and the dystopia depicted in that book, then you see that what Atlas Shrugged is really about, it's a world, or it depicts a dystopia, yes, but it's a world where liberals get their way. If liberals get everything they want in the real world, as you can see already from these 3 examples that I gave you, if liberals get everything that they want, then our world will look like Atlas Shrugged. And that's why everybody should read the book. I guess this is turning into a book review. That's why you should read the book, because liberals especially, they especially hate that book, and they are the ones who, it's most important that they read it to see what is going to be the result of their own policies, and hopefully will change their minds. Or actually, they don't even have to read these now. They don't even have to read Atlas Shrugged if you don't have time. Just look at California. Look at California. What California is today and is becoming, that is your future if you vote for liberals wherever you are. And for my future would be really bright if you give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Share with anybody you think would also like the video. Comments can go in the comment section below the video. Questions, suggestions for future topics. You could subscribe. I love getting new subscribers. And you can listen to my original music on my original music channel, separate channel, non-political. There's a link in the description. And I guess I'll just end with saying that, as I usually do, that I appreciate your spending your time with me. It means a lot to me. I only wish that I could see all of you as you're seeing me. If this vlog becomes popular, I look forward to a day maybe where I can do what they call meetups, where I can go to a city and meet all of you people. I really would love to get to know who's watching my videos. But until then, I hope you come back and see me again. I look forward to seeing you all again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.